Welcome to another episode of Video Store Rejects. This is a podcast where we discuss directors' filmographies and our favorite film franchises. I'm your host, Cody House. With me, as usually, is my co-host, Chris Jacobs. If you see a lot of the content posted on our Facebook page, this is the man that's 99% responsible for that.
I try.
And is your lovely wife with us today?
She is. She is. She'll be the floating voice off screen as always when I do go live. But
We also have our other wonderful co-host, Lindsay Jacobs, who a lot of times will look up facts and trivia about the movie, partly because she wants to and partly because it's fun. And I'm glad because she sometimes finds things that I miss when I look up stuff. So always happy to have her here.
Hello. You guys are so flatterers. I just can't take it.
And today we have a special guest. He is an individual he's part of a group that read scripts from movies and they talk about them much like we talk about these movies that we watch. It's Danny Hercules. Danny, welcome to the show.
Hi, how you doing? Thanks for having me.
So my first question is, what are your general thoughts on Ridley Scott as a filmmaker?
He's definitely a genius, and he's had a lot of experience, so he knows what he's doing. My four favorites of his would be Alien, The Martian, Thelma and Louise, and Matchstick Men. So I got the two in there that aren't the ones that he's most known for, I think.
Oh, well, that raises my second question. What was about this film in particular that made you want to talk about it? But you sort of answered it's one of your favorite ones.
Absolutely, yeah.
Let's talk about why you love this movie so much.
First, when I first was watching it for the first time, not knowing where it was going, it was reminding me of a movie I liked when I was a kid called Paper Moon with O'Neill and Ryan O'Neill. It's a father-daughter con movie. They're not really sure if they are father and daughter, and she's learning. She's like 11 years old, I think, in that, and she's learning how to do cons, and it's fun. And this was like that one was set like during the Depression, and Matchstick Men is like a contemporary updated that it's set in present day, and you have still the same kind of dynamic where these two people who don't really know each other, but they are supposedly related, and they come to bond with each other and really care about each other through this whole mentorship of learning cons. But then on top of that, there's the big surprise.
Mm-hmm. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Tatum O'Neal end up winning an Oscar for that film?
Yes, and she remains the youngest winner of the Academy Award in any of the four acting categories.
Was Anna Paquin older than her when she won for The Piano, or around the same age?
I think about 2 months older or something like that.
Okay. And that's a Bogdanovich film, right? That was his follow-up to Last Picture Show.
I don't know if it came right after that, but yeah, it was absolutely.
Okay. So, yeah, I agree with you. I've never seen Paper Moon. Sorry, apologies. I know I should check that movie out, especially since that's probably like one of the last really good Bogdanovich films, because there's a lot of people that have a theory that once his wife, who went on to become a producer herself, that did a lot of the production design of his early films, like the quality of his films went down after they separated.
Yeah, they actually continued working together for a long time after they separated. So I think Paper Moon they were already, because it was.
Yeah, that's right.
It was the Last Picture Show when he started an affair with Sybil Shepherd, and that was what broke up their marriage. But they continued to work on Paper Moon, and I think on What's Up, Doc, which came after that.
Well, I know they eventually stopped working together, and then she's really responsible for getting James L. Brooks, Cameron Crowe, and Wes Anderson started. Like, she produced all their first films.
Oh, that's cool.
But Matchstick Man, Is it just the story and the acting that you like? Because I think you're right. It doesn't really feel like a Ridley Scott movie when we think of Ridley Scott. And
It's the
like what
story.
he's
It's what you said. I didn't even mention the acting, but yes, it's the acting the most is Alison Lohman. That was also it's the first movie I really just noticed Sam Rockwell in, even though he'd already done Galaxy Quest, I think, and Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and the Gong Show guy. That movie was already out too. But this boy, I really liked what he did here as a sidekick. He did a lot of stuff. But then there's Alison Lohman, who was 22 years old when she did this movie, and she's playing a 14-year-old. And everybody on the set at the end of the day was like, "Do you need a ride home, little girl?" And she's like, "I have my own car." But she's really convincing.
What's interesting about that is I read that she dressed herself up purposely to look younger in the audition, and no one knew she was an adult. Everyone thought she was a child, as you're saying. And she doesn't act anymore, which is sad because she's really good in this. And she ended up being in Big Fish the same year playing the young Jessica Lange, but she kind of was one of those actors that kept playing like people 10 years younger than her, even though she is an adult.
Because she's good at it,
Yeah, she may have just gotten tired of being typecast and
Or being treated like a possible child.
yeah.
No, her last movie was Drag Me to Hell, and she was playing an adult in that.
Wow.
And it was right around that time she got married and she had kids, and she decided that the scripts that she was getting weren't good enough to tear her away from raising her family. So I did find somebody tracked her down and got her to sit down for a 2-hour podcast. It's been a while since I heard it, but she said that her kids were at the age now where if she found something that she liked, she would do it again. So she said she's actively looking.
Oh, well, that's cool. Hopefully she finds something good.
Yeah.
Good for her, because that's the nature of the business, especially for women. And good for her where she's like, well, I'm not going to settle just because it's work. Like, I don't need to work. I take care of my family, live my life. Good for her, because I feel like a lot of actors end up doing stuff they don't really feel passionate or like want to do, but they're like, I need work, so I'll take this job.
Hashtag cough cough Nicolas Cage and his lady.
I think he's really leaning into the whole Nicolas Cage brand now, though. I think.
Yeah, well, he's had a renaissance. He's coming back around, and I'm glad, because I know he's fun to poke fun. He's fun to kind of poke at and make the jokes and stuff. But he has done some really great movies over the years, and whether we want to admit it or not, he is iconic.
Nicolas Cage is the real national treasure.
Yeah, so good for him. I know he had. He had to pay off some debts and stuff. He loves his comic books and whatnot, but so do I. But man, he had a lot of money and he was taking roles left and right, and hence the jokes. But good for him. I'm glad old Nick Cage or Nicholas Coppola is coming back around.
Well, at the same point, that's also how you stay relevant in the business, right? As you keep working, even if it's bad work. Like, Nicolas Cage has never really disappeared from pop culture, even though it's not the same that it was his career in the 80s, where he was like this edgy method actor, up and coming. Look at the crazy stuff he's doing. And then
check out the Wogan interview on YouTube. It's pretty wild, where he comes out and does the cartwheel and the leather jacket, and then gives Wogan his T-shirt, and it's pretty classic Nick Cage. And then after he wins his Oscar, he kind of becomes an action star for about a decade. Right. And then then he kind of goes into this rough patch, but he occasionally shows up in something and gives an interesting performance and some good material. Which is always the question. Is Nicolas Cage a really good actor, or is Nicolas Cage kind of a bad actor? And I think the answer is a little bit of both. But I think it really depends on the script, what he has at the time, because like his art house stuff that we've seen a lot here lately in the last couple of years has been really great.
Right.
But then again, he'll turn around and do something that seems like a really straight to DVD Steven Seagal vehicle almost. But you never know. I think it's the script, because you're right. He can be great, or he could just bring out a lot of cheese. So I think it just depends.
Well, there's always an instance where he goes probably a little too much, and in this movie, I would probably say it's that scene in the drugstore.
I was gonna say that was probably one of my favorite lines. It's crude. But we all wanted to scream that at some point, like waiting in line for the bathroom, or like you're late for something, and you just want to turn to that person and be so kind, and then just have that Nick Cage, like off your rocker, split second rage come out, like he can portray it. I laughed out loud at that one.
But I think this performance and this character works for those Nick Cage eccentricities. I would say, I was telling Danny before we went live that people put this in like the Nick Cage Hall of Fame. I think this is one of his stronger performances.
I adore this movie because of his acting in this, and like you feel so bad for him too, because he portrayed his tics really well, I think, and he sells it. And then at the same time, you feel bad for him, because I think he actually does feel sorry that he's ripping old people off, and but he keeps doing it,
Well, he's good at it, and he's got to make money. But like when he's teaching Alison Lohman, he thinks how to con. Like when they're done, he's like, "Go give that lady her money back. Like she doesn't deserve to be swindled out of $300."
Yeah, as far as his tics go, if it wasn't so necessary for the story, I would have thought, oh, that's overboard. That's just Nicolas Cage being crazy for the sake. But it really is integral to the story. It's important to see that growth and how that changes. And he's, they're not shooting in sequence, and he's got to measure that. Am I in a period now when I'm happy because of Angela's in my life, so I don't have as many tics? He's got to keep track of all that. And on the commentary or on the documentary, they were talking about how, he did that all by himself. He, nobody had to remind him. This is where he mapped it all out. He was very aware of that.
Yeah, and we like to make fun. We like to say, "Oh, Nicolas Cage is crazy and weird and over the top," but when it works, it works, and he does deliver. And maybe he's always putting an extra pinch of spice in his performance sometimes when it doesn't need it. But I think this is one of those instances where it's fine. It kind of melds with his personality more so.
Yeah.
But everybody in this movie is like Alison Lohman, who was just in White Oleander before this, which is actually pretty good film. She's also playing a teenager in that, opposite Michelle Pfeiffer. But she holds her own here with Nick Cage and Sam Rockwell, another person who's usually guilty of stealing a movie away from people.
Yeah.
And you get solid character actor Bruce McGill to play the Mark in this.
And Bruce Altman.
Bruce Altman, that's that guy's name, who I think this is the first thing I remember seeing him in, and I'm like, this guy looks kind of like. Go ahead.
Then look him up on IMDb. He's probably got 200 credits. He's one of those guys that you just don't place, but you've seen him in a lot of things.
But I remember the first time I watched it, I'm like, this guy kind of looks like Robert Zemeckis. Is this Robert Zemeckis acting?
Maybe when Zemeckis was attached to it, he was going to be that part. You never know.
That's right. Zemeckis, was he attached before or after Spielberg?
I never read the Spielberg was attached to it. I only heard that it was Zemeckis, and he was the one. So what happened was the writers read the book and they liked the book, but they didn't like the twist. So they because it angered them because they cared about the two characters, and to take that away from them, they felt cheated. So they wrote or they pitched it and then wrote the first couple of drafts without the twist, and that's got Zemeckis attached to it. And he had read the book and he said, "Okay, I see what you're trying to do. Put it back." So, so he got the twist back in there. And then when Ridley read that draft of the script with the twist back in it, he said he was fooled by it too. So I think everybody really likes being fooled. Well, not everybody, but.
But I mean, that is, we're going to get to the twist now, but that is kind of the beauty of it. It's like, a con man being conned, right?
Right. Right.
Well,
and we don't.
Going back to Nick Cage and selling it, like he makes you feel bad for a con man in the end. And that's all a part, that's the whole, excuse me, that's him selling it.
Yeah, I read the novel last month just to prepare for this. I'd never read it before. And he's a lot less sympathetic in the novel.
Okay.
A lot of the scams are different, but the laundromat one is in there, and except that it's at the beginning. It's before he meets Angela. He does it with Frank. And they take this woman who's like on welfare, and she can't feed her kids, and she can't get shoes for her kids, and they clean out her entire savings account, and he feels a little bit bad about it, but they don't do the book doesn't do anything more with that. He just continues to feel bad about it.
Wow.
And
I'm honestly, like, I do want to read the book now, but I don't know when I'll ever get to it.
Yeah.
But from the sound of it, from the description, I'm kind of glad that they went in the direction they did in the movie, because it just, I don't know, it adds feeling. Like, again, you don't want to feel sympathetic for a con man because they are pretty low, but he sells it in that Nick Cage way with his acting. So by the end of the movie, you're like, oh man, I feel bad for this dude, and that's kind of rare in a movie where you feel bad for the criminal.
Right. Well, and Ridley, this is according to the commentary, this was one of Ridley's contributions when he first came on. He said, I to add sympathy for the character, make sure that all of his victims have a little bit of greed. So it seems like they were asking for it.
Well, I mean, who we end up conning, of course we don't feel bad that they take 80,000 from this guy, because he doesn't even tip his valets.
Oh yeah. Right.
Like, and we know he's into some shady business, right? He does something illegal. But I mean, he's just one of those guys. I mean, I don't guess McGill really is a great actor, but like whatever you need him to do, he's there and he does it. And
I've loved Bruce McGill since Animal
House, yeah.
Animal House, MacGyver. I loved his character in MacGyver. He's done so many great things, but he's one of those actors where you've probably noticed him and everything. And I hate to say that because to us it's like, oh, Bruce McGill, but to someone else, I can kind of see where he's
that guy from that thing.
Yeah, he's that guy from that thing that popped up in this, and I remember, but I can't remember his name. He's like the guy who played the therapist. You were talking about him earlier.
Right.
Like, you've seen him, but he's not, I don't guess, really a name unless you're just like a film buff or you're a fan of his. But to the average eye, he's that guy that popped up here and back in 1996, and that's what I remember him from.
Yeah, I mean, I felt the same way the first time I saw this. I didn't know his name. I didn't know his work. I didn't think I did, but I recognized him. And then when I looked him up and saw that he played D-Day in Animal House, because he was so much younger then, of course. Like, oh, that's the same guy. I can't believe it.
Yeah, he's such a great actor.
Well, and he's kind of made a career out of playing these like larger than life type of guys. He's usually a cop or a criminal most of the time. And like he's physically threatening, like when he chases them in the airport parking lot, like you're like, oh crap, he's gonna murder he's gonna murder them. I mean, rightfully you'd be mad too if someone swindled you out of $80,000, but like it's scary.
Well, don't forget though, he's acting because he's actually in on the con.
Right, yeah.
So there's that extra layer. You don't know it the first time you're seeing it, but like they pointed out on the commentary, you see when he's running after the car just as he's going through the gate in that scene that you're talking about, he's not really trying to catch them. He has to let them go. So,
Yeah.
So he played it like, I got to act like so that Nicolas Cage thinks that I'm trying to catch him, but I have to not really catch him.
And I mean, that's why I think we as audience like con men movies, because you have to be a bit of an actor to be a very good con man. So actors playing in this field is like, well, of course I can do this. I'm an actor.
There's a great scene just before he goes to meet the Bruce McGill character for the first time, where he's trying on all the different glasses and the different clothes. It's exactly what he does when he's in, you can see it in the documentary for this when he goes for his costume fitting. He's trying on the different hats as Nicolas Cage to see which is going to make him be Roy the best. It's exactly how he does it as Roy being, the con man.
Yeah, this movie's just delightful and entertaining, and it's just an interesting, like, I gotta say, have you read the script or seen the script before?
I probably read the script a long time ago. I don't really remember what changed and what draft I read.
Because it seems like
shooting draft.
Because this seems like a very well-written script, like just for the nature of the plot, but it seems like, it weaves in and out of everything very well.
Oh, it's so tightly set up. They talk a lot about on the commentary about how there's nothing, almost nothing was cut. There was no fat. Because
wow.
If you cut something, everything that's in the movie is important. It's setting something up, it's planting something for later. It's developing the character relationship. It's moving the plot along. Every single scene is important. It's all a puzzle. And an example of one of the things that the screenwriters did that wasn't in the book. There's a scene when they're there at the Dodger Stadium parking lot where they find out that she's been arrested before. That's in the book, but again, in the book they don't do anything with it. And the screenwriters first they plant it by when they're doing the laundromat scheme, they have Nicolas Cage say, yeah, stay away from the ATM cameras. So they're planting the whole idea of her being, whether or not she's ever been, if there's a record for her. And then they use that scene that was in the book, but they use it this way. So they say, yeah, she has a record. She's been photographed. And now that's how we know how Bruce McGill catches her. We think that he catches her.
Right, because it's all this long con.
Yeah.
So do you think she was sympathetic in the end when he was telling her, like, hey, I want to take custody. I want to join custody, and I want to be more involved, and I'm willing to give up this life for you. And then she breaks down. Do you think that's a part of her con? She's just that good, or do you think she felt bad because he was actually, turning his life around for her, and then she broke down for real? Like how
I think you can see it in the last scene in the carpet store that they really cared about each other, and I think that scene that you're talking about is definitely part of that. In fact, Ridley points out on the DVD that was a direction that he gave to Allison that wasn't in the script. That he wanted to see her gradually start to feel bad about what they were doing to him. So he said that that would start in the Dodger Stadium scene in the parking lot.
Because I've seen this movie numerous times since it came out on DVD back in the day, and I picked it up because I missed it in theater, but I rented it and I immediately fell in love with it and I bought it. And it's one I'll go back and revisit, every couple, I don't say every couple weeks, maybe once a year. I might sneak it in there. Nice. It's just really great. But like today or yesterday when I rewatched it, I was like, I'm I really want to pay attention to Sam Rockwell and the daughter and everyone who was in on it, and pick up on the little nuances and the little hints here and there, and the way that they worked the story and planned everything out. Like when he took her bowling and he just got that call. It was like, we're ready. You need to come now. And he was kind of forced to bring her along and work her in on that plot, and how everything was just so played, like Emperor Palpatine playing the long game in Star Wars. Like, it was that good and that detailed. And there's little looks, like after he throws him the bag of money, there's looks that Sam Rockwell gives, or little comments, that you normally would not have picked up on. But if you just really pay attention to them, it's so brilliantly done, and so well constructed. It's great. I love it.
I think that's got to go with just the talent of Sam Rockwell as an actor, and also just Sam Rockwell's personality. Like, he's got like charisma and a swagger, but I wouldn't say that it's cockiness. It's like some sort of, I don't know, but he's got
the two major roles that stuck out before this were Buffalo Bill in Green Mile, and Guy in Galaxy Quest. Thank you, baby. Galaxy Quest.
Is it Buffalo Bill in Green Mile? Isn't it a different name? Because isn't Buffalo Bill the serial killer in Silence of the Lambs?
I think it was Buffalo Bob, maybe. Thank you. Yeah, my wife said, "I'll look it up." But they called him, because we recently watched it, and here a couple of days ago, actually, and they called him Buffalo.
No, hold on.
Or is it something Bob? Wild Bob?
Wild Bill.
Wild Bill something.
Wow, I guess I had Silence of the Lambs on the brain, which we did not too long ago. But anyway,
yeah,
great in those roles. And then, man, he just keeps stepping it up in this. You can see it. He owns it.
He just has great used car salesman energy, and like
yeah,
in a lot of things.
Yeah, I should go back and look at the script, because I have a feeling he was kind of ad-libbing a lot of his stuff.
Totally.
He's so free and loose with it. He's really into that character.
I think that's just him as an actor. And like I said, he usually like steals the show. Like, case in point, Iron Man 2. I know a lot of people would be like, oh, Iron Man 2 is kind of one of the more boring Marvel movies. But like every time he's on screen in that movie, like,
Bill Warden,
yeah, that was his name, Wild Bill Ward. I think he like owns Iron Man 2 every time he's on screen in it.
Oh yeah.
I wouldn't say he steals the movie in this, but he's definitely stand out. Like, the top 3 leads are all outstanding in this.
They really are.
Absolutely.
Chris, you forgot his most important role as the head teenager of the Foot Clan in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie.
You know what? No, I was gonna mention that, but I was like, no, I'll keep it. Like, I don't want to go full. I don't want to go full nerd, but excuse me.
No, I just being silly, because I remember, like, I don't know how many times I've seen that movie in my lifetime, but
I will point him out every time. I'll be watching it with the kids. I'm like, kids, it's Sam Rockwell, and they're like, who? Yeah, I'm like, look, you'll get it when you're older, but just remember, dear old dad pointing him out.
I feel like Sam Rockwell was like a guy my mom probably dated. Like, I don't know why he has that. Like, I'm definitely not stepdad material, but I'll give you ice cream money. I don't know. Maybe that's just me, my personal experience I'm projecting, but a lovable version.
Yeah.
Actually, I think that's a point she brings up in the movie. Like, they're just like other guys. My dad.
My mom dates.
My mom dates.
Yeah. But she said that's
yeah, she does say that. Go ahead, Danny.
I got the feeling that a lot of people in the mainstream didn't really know him until he got nominated for an Oscar for, was it Three Billboards?
Yeah, he actually won the
He won.
Oscar. Yeah.
Then all of a sudden people had to know who he was. But, I don't think a lot of people saw Moon. So.
Oh, that's so good. Yeah.
It's one of our favorites too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think until then, people like just, there's that little like wiry, he seems sleazy, but for some reason I find him charming guy. There's another movie he did, which is more, he's not the lead, but he's like kind of like the Bill Murray figure it is in Meatballs. It's called The Way Back, where he like works or runs a water park, and he kind of mentors this young kid.
The Way Back.
The Way Back. Yeah, because The Way Back is a different movie. Yeah, The Way. Yeah, and he's pretty good in that too. Yeah, basically doing his Sam Rockwell thing.
He's consistent. He delivers.
Yeah, but as far as like Ridley Scott goes, I think this is because he's kind of a weird director of like where to put him in, because I don't feel like he's a complete auteur director, but I don't think he's just a journeyman director either. I feel like he's like somewhere in the middle.
Well, I mean, he kind of got sidetracked. He was doing these first 4 movies where each one of them was in a world that he had to build, and only one of them did well. So yeah. He talks about this on the commentary. Weirdly enough, for Matchstick Men, as the credits, he just starts rambling on about his whole entire career.
Maybe he was to atone for his sins of making 1492.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess after Legend failed, he decided to try to make more normal movies. What he wasn't sure what a normal movie was. So was it Someone to Watch Over Me? Was that his next one?
Yes, which feels very much like a Lifetime movie, and the only way you can tell it's Ridley Scott is it looks beautiful. Like, it's beautifully shot, but other than that, the movie's like meh.
Right. So it really took him a while to get back to figuring out what he does best and how to make the audiences love that too. But I think he is an auteur. It's just he doesn't not consistently. He doesn't always hit a home run.
Right. I feel like he does a lot of these, like you said, because Blade Runner and Legend both flop. So like he does a lot of these more commercial movies. Then Thelma and Louise was a huge critical box office hit. So he puts all his money into this Columbus movie, which was a huge disaster.
Did you guys cover that yet?
We did.
Okay.
We talked about that for like maybe 20 minutes, and then we talked about how underrated Kingdom of Heaven is.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I haven't seen that one.
If you watch it, I suggest you find the director's cut. It is long, but it adds so much more to the movie, and it's like almost a different movie. It is probably, in my opinion, one of the more like, the director's cut is like a different movie, because like a lot of times it's director's cut, but really it's just like they added a few more scenes into the movie that they cut out. But this is like almost an hour of material and character arcs that aren't even in the theatrical cut.
Kingdom?
Yeah, Kingdom of Heaven. Yeah.
I'm curious to see it because I actually just watched The Last Duel last week. Or a couple of days ago, actually. And I really liked that. So now I'm curious to go back and see more of his Kingdom of Heaven. And I want to rewatch Legend because I don't remember anything about that.
Well, I like that movie a lot. I know it's not a perfect movie, but the visuals, the special effects, and Tim Curry's performance alone is worth watching.
He's the favorite part of my movie, the favorite thing about that movie.
But I feel like he has 2 type of movies he really likes to do, and that's usually historical epics or some sort of meditational sci-fi movie about humanity and why, what is humanity's purpose. And stuff like that.
Yeah, I was disappointed with Prometheus because I was expecting something different. So
Were you wanting it more to be closer to the Alien films?
that's how they first announced it, and that got me excited, and then they shifted. So
Yeah, and I think Alien Covenant is somewhat of a compromised version of the two. Yeah, because I'm sure people are like, "What is this, Ridley Scott? We just want an Alien movie, and you're giving us a movie about nature of God and man and their purpose in life." So I think he does a few of these commercial movies here and there. But when he gets one like this, it's like, well, it's good. Like, if you got a good script, then it's going to show.
Right. Well, you probably know the backstory, but he was trying to get a movie made called Tripoli. And that was in, they had like a 7.5 month time delay waiting for some, they were prepping it. And he said, well, I have 6 months off. I can squeeze in another movie. And he found this script, and he did this while he was waiting to get Tripoli made. And then Tripoli never got made. So they spent longer in post than he normally would have, really fine tuning the editing and testing it a lot. And, you mentioned those looks. One of you mentioned those looks that the actors share, the ones who are in on the con. There were a lot more of those. They weren't in the script. That was Ridley said, "Hey, do these extra little things," and he had more of those in there in the test screenings. And when audiences guessed the ending before it happened, they could always point to one of those things. So he pulled some of those back out. So, but that's because he had the time, because Tripoli didn't happen.
But he pulled just enough out that you don't notice it the first time that you watch it, and I love that. That's the best part of this whole movie, and why you feel so bad, for Nick Cage.
I will admit that my memory is kind of some of the worst, which is why I write everything down. And I had completely forgotten what the twist was. Watching this until Christopher looked at me, he's like, "We've watched this before. You know what happens, right?" And I was like, "No, what?" So I kind of got to watch like half of it, not knowing the ending, and then the other half looking for those looks and those comments that they make. And so that was delightful. I really appreciated how subtle it was.
But you mentioning him doing this because he had free time is also, Spielberg is guilty of this too all the time. Like when something's in post-production, he's like, well, I got some time. Let me just crank out a drama while this effects movie I'm doing is in post. But the reason he didn't end up doing this was because he went on to do Catch Me If You Can, which is a bit similar.
I did hear that,
which is also a con man movie and dealing with daddy issues, but that's kind of like a symmetry with Spielberg's career, because it's like him coming to terms with his daddy issues and like learning the truth about his parents' divorce.
Now it makes sense that he would have been interested in Matchstick Men.
Which I do think they have perfectly good chemistry together, even though it's not, it's a father-daughter relationship instead of what would be normal in these type of movies. But they're good together, and you buy that they could be father-daughter.
Catch Me If You Can had that estrangement from the father. I think that really probably spoke to him personally a lot more.
Oh yeah, and I think there's that whole Frank Abagnale Jr., him pretending to be all these different professions. I think Spielberg related to because because he was sneaking onto the Universal lot and giving himself an office and stuff you could not do this day and age. In the industry, and now he's one of the most powerful people in Hollywood.
Right. Well, Zemeckis left this project to do Polar Express, so there's no really correlation there at all.
Nope. It's just, I guess, Zemeckis wanting to play with technology, I guess, is all I can think of.
Yeah, so I think we lucked out, because I don't know if he would have been as good. I don't think he would have turned out as good a movie as Ridley did.
I think you're right, because I don't want to like be mean or say something cruel about someone's career, but I have not been interested in most of Zemeckis' later works. I did enjoy Flight, but that's probably more so for Denzel Washington than Zemeckis. And I've heard some people say that Brad Pitt, Marion Cotillard's spy thriller he did was decent.
What was that?
It's called Allied.
Oh, I never saw that.
I never saw it either. It didn't get great reviews, but there are people that say it's pretty decent. Like, you know, it's at least Zemeckis working with actual actors, and it's like a Hollywood movie.
Right.
But yeah, he's just in this motion capture phase again, and you know, that's fine. Do what you want, Robert Zemeckis. But yeah, I think Ridley Scott coming in here and just doing a solid job with some really good actors makes one of his better movies.
Yeah.
Well, with the advancements in technology, I mean, surely he can fix the dead eyes issues that he has with his films, his CGI films.
We'll see how Pinocchio looks when it comes out in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Maybe that's his signature. Is like, no, they all gotta have dead eyes. Dead eyes.
Well, did you guys see the Chippendale movie that came out this summer on Disney Plus? There's a whole joke with a character that looks like one of those characters from the early 2000s.
As a, you know, as someone who watched that show as a younger person, I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a sweet movie, and lots of references. You know, all the ones that hit home. So it was cool. I like what they did with it. It was very, very. It was an updated Roger Rabbit. It felt like, who's actually in it. So I thought it was,
yeah,
I thought it was great. Yeah, makes a little appearance. But.
Yeah, it's entertaining. It's the Lonely Island guys too involved in it. So the same people that did Hot Rod and Pop Star and Palm Springs. So it's got that kind of humor in it.
Yeah, I met them once. I was doing a Q&A with them for Hot Rod for a screening, and they were really, really nice to me.
Oh, cool. That's good to know. It's always good to know when celebrities are nice.
I did one the next night for a different celebrity who wasn't as nice, so I won't say.
Yeah. Well, we've heard some. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that was a Comic-Con, but go ahead.
Yeah, we our Hannibal episode, our guest shared a story with a person they know that worked on a commercial Ridley Scott was filming, and apparently Ridley Scott was not a nice dude on the set.
Yeah, you know, we were talking about. Have we talked on the air yet about the documentary?
You've mentioned it a few times, but you can go.
So
tell us more about it.
It's on the DVD and it's on the Blu-ray and it's also on Vimeo online for free. It's not your standard EPK with the people doing interviews just to promote the movie. This is really a video diary that goes day by day for the whole production, starting with, you know, day 5 of pre-production where they're doing costume fittings and still auditioning some of the cast. And they really give you a lot of behind. It's really like a film school. It's like you find out what every position does, what the AD does, the assistant director, and so forth. And I was mentioning before we went on live that they even have stuff where people kind of get upset and lose their cool. And the one time they show Ridley Scott losing his cool is when they were filming that scene at Dodger Stadium and the camera jammed and he lost a good take and he got really pissed and he started swearing and everything. And they said, look, I think he even said that. Then they cut to an interview where he's talking about, yeah, in the old days, I have a reputation of always losing my cool a lot and being mean and yelling at people. But by the time I made this movie, I chilled out a lot. And that was the only time that happened on the entire shoot. So he's aware of it and he works on it. And I thought that was very clever.
Well, that's good that he's grown, and because at that point he's over 60. But you know, he's still blaming millennials and their cell phones for not going to go see his movie about rape.
Yeah.
During a pandemic.
Right. Right.
Let's see.
Well,
Right.
I finally just saw it 2 days ago, and I liked it a lot. So
Oh, it's a phenomenally well-made movie, but I mean, I can
you're right.
understand.
I wasn't going to go to the theater to see it.
I can understand why people didn't want to go see it in the theater. You know, it's subject matter, it's length, it's
Historical, epic, you know.
Yeah.
And those are
It's-
kind of not in at the moment.
I mean, I don't fault anyone for not going to the theater right now if they don't want to. And I appreciate filmmakers like Guillermo del Toro and Scott Dickerson who are like, hey, if you can, please go see my movie. But if you don't, we understand, and it'll be available for you to watch soon and on other formats. Instead of like Christopher Nolan and Denis Villeneuve like demanding you see their movie in the theater. Which I understand, but also at the same time, you know, there's other factors too besides the pandemic. It's the cost of going to the movie theater. And, you know, we have really nice TVs now. So,
Well, it's like Quentin Tarantino. He does the roadshow version of The Hateful Eight. He says, you're only going to be able to see the long version in a theater. I'm not going to put it out. And I liked The Hateful Eight, but I saw the regular theatrical cut. I don't want to see a longer version of that. You know,
well,
it was.
it's funny you mentioned that because he did eventually drop it as a longer version, like,
Well,
and it was broke up in 4 parts on Netflix.
Yeah, I did see that part. It didn't help because, and I don't know how much was added to it because they also redid the credits at the beginning and end of each episode. So it's not exactly the same as the original long cut.
Right. And he's never released the long cut of Kill Bill either, where it's all together.
Right.
Like, it's only been shown a few times as screenings. Well, Danny, is there something else we haven't talked about this movie that you want to bring up?
Well, there's two actresses in there in small parts that were familiar to me. The woman in the grocery store who he ends up with at the end, that was Sheila Kelly. Are you familiar with her at all?
No.
I remembered her from a TV show called L.A. Law. She was kind of a big deal, and she did a couple of movies, and then one of the movies she played a stripper, and she really loved doing the pole dancing, so she ended up opening up this like national chain of pole dancing studios teaching housewives to pole dance. And I think she's back in. I think she eventually got back into acting, but that's for a while that was taken up.
I know where I have seen her, and she was she was Ichabod Crane's mother in Sleepy Hollow.
No, wasn't that Lisa Marie, who was which, not to be confused with Elvis's daughter, but the
Lisa
model
Marie from Ed Wood,
that used to be dated. Yeah, I think that's who plays Ichabod Crane's mom in Sleepy Hollow.
She was the witch lady?
Oh, yeah. No. I was confused here. You guys are on the right track. Sorry.
Well, you mentioned Cameron Crowe before.
Uh-huh.
Remember Cameron Crowe's Singles?
Yes, she's in
Kelly
Singles.
Was Debbie. Yeah, she was Debbie in there.
Okay. Which also has Tim Burton briefly in there as a director for a music video.
Yeah. And then the other woman at the end, she's not even credited. The ex-wife, we see her at the end. It's Melora Walters, I think. And she was in Magnolia. Did you ever see that? Oh,
yes.
She was the one who's... Yeah, she's the one who's going on the date with the cop, with John C. Reilly. I thought she was phenomenal in that.
She was. Yeah.
And she just did this tiny little thing, and she didn't take credit for it. I don't know who she is that she thinks she doesn't need credit. She's really good. She should do bigger parts.
Yeah, she's great in Magnolia. That's a wonderful performance. Ridley Scott's wife's in this too. She's the bank teller, not the lady. Not the lady at the security deposit, but the first lady where he comes in and is like
behind the window.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Which she's shown up in a lot of his movies. She was Maximus's wife in Gladiator, and she's shown up in a few of his movies. Because this is really at the point where Ridley Scott starts cranking movies out. Because like the first half of his career, 10 movies in a 20-year time span, okay, but He's like almost doubled that since Gladiator. No, he has doubled it. He's almost quadrupled. He's directed 17 films in the last 22 years. Yeah.
Wow.
He's really
Not
cranked
slow
him
down.
out. No, and he's like 84, and he's got a new movie coming out next year about Napoleon.
Oh, yeah, I think I did hear about that.
Yeah, I don't think it's connected to the Kubrick
No.
version. I think it's a whole different Napoleon movie, but yeah. Well, Danny, we here try to create interesting rankings based on the directors we're covering. So for Ridley Scott, this is the rankings I've come up with. If you since he has like a commercial and art school background, this is how I rated him. If you love this movie, you think it's a masterpiece, we call it a work of art. If you think it's entertaining, it hits its marks, it does its job, it's constructually sound. There's always a deep dive rating. That's for movies that are a little more obscure, maybe for its cult status more so. If it is kind of mediocre, it's okay, not great. It's a nice pat on the back, Ridley, good effort. And if it's absolutely horrible, it's a mess. It only belongs on Ridley's mommy's fridge. And Lindsay pointed out they all go on Ridley's mommy's fridge, but the reason I say that is because when like little kids do their drawings and sometimes they're not very good, but the parents still will put it on the fridge for the kid. And it's like, yeah, we got your artwork up here, even though it's not good.
Yeah, got it. I mean, look, in my world, I tell you, I told you my 4 favorites of his. So in my world, if I'm only worried about what I like, I would call it a masterpiece. But I recognize that it's not what Ridley Scott fans would think of when they think of Ridley Scott's canon. So I guess it's more of the deep dive that everybody should see it if they haven't, especially if they like his films. It's definitely better than something that should go on the fridge,
Yeah.
Yeah. But for me, it's a masterpiece. But I guess that's where I stand.
Well, you could use your own personal ranking. You don't have to.
But everybody else should see it, even if they don't love it like they love Blade Runner or whatever. I know it's not Blade Runner,
But everyone has their personal taste. It's all subjective. If you think this movie's great, then it's great to you.
It's great. To me, it's great. I could watch it over and over.
What do you guys think?
Man, I want to say masterpiece, but I know, again, it's...
These rankings are to appease us and no one else. So just say it's a masterpiece because that's how you feel about it.
Yeah, if that's how you feel about this movie.
I always revert back to the first time I saw it and how, it just blew my mind. So, and if a film does that and it has the rewatchability that it does, because you're always finding little things here and there. And I mean, the outcome, but you still go back to revisit it. So in my mind, it's a masterpiece.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'll go with masterpiece. I know that's probably a little too much praise because, I mean, it's not completely perfect. But like I said, if a film, when you rewatch it and it still gives you that feeling of, man, this is such a great film, and you can go back to it, then yeah, I mean, in my mind, it's a masterpiece.
Well, Chris, it's kind of like why comedies rarely win Oscars. It's because anything that's lighter, you think, well, that was nice and entertaining, but this other heavy drama, that's got gravitas, and that's why those movies win all the Oscars.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's true, and I think there was some Oscar-worthy performances in this.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
there totally is.
All 3 of the leads. Well, maybe not Nicolas Cage so much, but.
And I guarantee you, if you hadn't read the book, or knew anything about it like I did at the time, and you sit down, you would either be just really wowed by it or just like meh. And the people who were wowed by it, I mean, it did its job. and did its thing. And I think that it translated really well, and
I think it falls under the umbrella of masterpiece just because it's the way that it's put together. I think you mentioned he had extra time on his hands for editing and things like that, so I think it's as meticulously put together as Nick Cage takes care of that carpet. Like, I was telling Christopher, I don't know if Nick Cage does so well in this role because this is kind of part of who Nick Cage is, just kind of a very neurotic person. But I think his acting is also Oscar worthy. Like, and the whole subject matter of like a father-daughter relationship and how even though in the end it is a big con, like the relationship that he has kind of it eases some of his symptoms of his various neuroses and disorders, and it kind of helps. It's a very therapeutic movie, I'll say that. Even though there are no actual therapists that I remember on screen, as well as that man played one.
Yeah, because we don't even know if the guy he was getting the illegal drugs from was an actual psychiatrist either.
Well, if they're illegal, I bet.
He was definitely not. And
yeah.
He was, the first guy who was getting them. Yeah. He
yeah.
Said they were, yeah. Right.
He was either a very bad therapist if he's giving people medication or prescriptions willy-nilly, or he's just definitely somebody who knows where to steal pills from.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's part of that crime movie trope that he's probably a vet. Because have you ever noticed in a lot of the crime movies, they go to a vet to get patched up instead of an actual doctor?
Oh, yeah.
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 It's like, okay.
Right.
I guess I don't love this movie quite as much as everybody else does, but I still enjoy this movie quite a bit. It is a very well-made, very well-structured film, and I do believe the performances elevate this movie so it doesn't just feel like another con man movie. It does stand on its own. I think I slightly prefer, as far as like the Ridley Scott movies that don't quite feel like Ridley Scott movies, I prefer Thelma and Louise and The Martian to this. I think those are a little more, they got a little more oomph to them for me as rewatchability, but this is very entertaining. This, I think, belongs in the Ridley Scott Hall of Fame. If we're going to make a Ridley Scott Hall of Fame, it deserves to be in that top 10 status, you know. Well, Danny, thank you so much for coming on the show. Is there anything you want to plug? Absolutely. Is there anything you want to plug or mention while you're here?
We talked a little bit about the writers group at the beginning, so I might as well go ahead and give a plug. It's not my group, but I've been going to it every month since 2010, 2009, I think, and I haven't missed one. It's a writers. It's primarily for people who are interested in learning about writing. And each month we read a screenplay of a movie that hasn't come out yet, or is just about to. So instead of just reading each other's unproduced scripts, we are reading a script that's been made. It's at least that good. But a lot of times we're reading earlier drafts, and so they'll differ from the finished film. And we have a different guest moderator. Somebody who's usually a screenwriting teacher, or they've written screenwriting books. Some of them are screenwriters themselves. And we have really lively debates about it, and it's fun. And until the pandemic, we were actually meeting on the lot at 20th Century Fox. And the good thing about it was great to meet in person, but the good thing about having it on Zoom now is that people who aren't in LA are free to join the group. I mean, it's not free, but if you want to find out more about it, go to StoryboardDG for StoryboardDevelopmentGroup.com.
Cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate you taking time out of your day. I appreciate you willing to talk this movie with us. I don't know if there's just too many movies on this filmography, or everyone just wanted to do Alien and Blade Runner, so I appreciate someone willing to take one of the ones people aren't like, oh, he did that one? So
like
I
someone
appreciate
watch over me.
Yeah. Lindsay, was there anything else you wanted to add before we left?
Those documentaries, the show.
Oh, yes, there is. Thank you for reminding me. We were talking about one of the actors and how he falls under the umbrella of that guy from That Thing, from like a lot of things. And there's like a whole category of actors and actresses who are obviously working constantly, and their roles are a lot more minor, and they aren't on like all the A-list celebrity listicles and things like that. And there was like a docu-series that was made. They had one special called That Guy from That Thing, which makes it really easy to remember. That came out in 2012. Then they followed up with That Gal from That Thing and then That Guy Too in 2015. And I recommend those because I know Christopher and I have watched some of it. And it really is like the Leonardo DiCaprio meme from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where he's pointing and he's like, that right there. That's like the whole experience, is getting to like learn those people's names and hear about kind of how hard that type of work is. So I do want to recommend those to anybody who's interested.
Great. Well, again, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for agreeing to talk with us about this movie. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and hopefully you have enjoy the rest of your holiday weekend if you have it.
Okay, thank you. You too.
Yeah, nice to meet you, Danny.
Same here.
Check this out on our Facebook page. It's on YouTube right now. On our Twitter page, we're going to be with a returned guest tomorrow to talk Black Hawk Down. And then we have our weekly show where we're doing spooky movies for the next 2 months.
Sweet. Yeah.
So until then, stay safe. Stay clean. You don't have to be as clean as Nicolas Cage is in this movie. That's maybe a little overkill, but somewhere in between that and a slob is a good happy medium.
And don't forget to check out Paper Moon.
Yes, thank you. That is a blind spot I need to check out.
One more observation is watching this movie just makes me want to mouthwash and shower, because in every single scene, someone is just smoking.
Like
There's so much smoking in this movie, and nothing against smokers. I mean, if that's your thing, that's your thing. But it just seemed like, as clean as he kept his house, and he was always scrubbing, he was chain smoking.
That was actually a thing the writers put in on purpose. They said one of our clues is everybody who commits cons is going to smoke at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah, I read that too. Is like, and yeah, that's the only people. Of course, that's pretty much the only people you're watching on screen, other than these side characters that pop in and out. But yeah, like all of them, that's the only people we see smoking in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thank you again for coming on. I appreciate your time, and I appreciate your opinion on this wonderful movie that, if you haven't seen, please check it out. It's kind of hard to find on streaming right now. It's on the Roku channel, but it'll pop up on something because it was on HBO for a while. But you should check it out because it's one of those mid-2000 Nicolas Cage movies that's really good. It's a very good Ridley Scott film. And yeah, Alison Lohman should have worked more because she's a wonderful actress. All right. Well, goodbye, everybody, and thanks again.
Bye-bye.
All right, thanks.